and welcome to the LU Off-Campus Programs podcast called Beyond Borders. My name is Lillian Sandberg. I'm your host, and today I have two amazing guests with me who will introduce themselves. I don't know who wants to go first.
I can go first.
Okay.
I'm Beatrice. I studied abroad in London.
Cool.
I'm Alex. I studied abroad in Berlin.
And I studied abroad in Freiburg, Germany. And today, we're going to be talking about how / going through our experience coming back from studying abroad, because that's an underratedly difficult part of studying abroad, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like a good place to start is like as you're getting ready to leave your host country, right? Do you have any advice for like last things you should do, things you should see or get that you wish you did that you didn't do when you left, kind of thing? Something like that.
I'd say just get out there and live it like you would any other week. Because, like,
Okay.
the last thing you want to do is, like, freeze up with the, oh, God, it's my last week. What am I going to do? And then you spend the whole week in your room panicking about what you're actually going to do with that time, and then you do nothing with that time.
True.
I avoided myself falling into that trap with that mindset. But, like, I did still bawl my eyes out when I was getting on the S-Bahn to go to the airport. But,
I mean, that's to be
That's to be expected.
Mhm.
And
I cried on my flight home too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's really difficult. One thing that I did as I kind of went to all the places that I kind of associated with like my spots, like
Mhm.
one last
Mhm.
time, I went on a really long hike with my best friends one last time, which was sad in that moment, but like, I don't know. I have pictures from like the last week that I'm just like,
Mhm.
that was like my last hurrah. So
Good
I
way
feel
to
like,
wrap it up. Kind
yeah,
of.
I feel like honestly not doing anything necessarily new,
Yeah.
but just
Mhm.
those like, I don't know, nostalgic sort of parts is what I tried to do with my time. But I was
Mhm.
also leaving in May when the
Yeah.
weather was nice and it's not cold and all those things.
Right.
But,
Mhm.
yeah.
No, I agree with that. I went there was a cafe that I really liked just a couple blocks away from the London Center, and I went back there a couple times, in the last week.
I went and sung Ocean Man at a karaoke night at a Christmas market in Berlin.
That's so
And
fun.
That's amazing.
I decided that would be the week that I would do it because it's the last week.
Right.
And if I embarrass myself, nobody can say anything when I come back the next time because it's my last time
Exactly.
going to that Christmas
It's
market.
true. It's
Facts.
true.
That's so true. Yeah.
So it's like a great week to get any like silly, goofy bucket list items out of the way.
Right.
Mhm.
Stuff you were like, I think the hardest part for me was saying like goodbye to like my roommates and stuff like that, which
Yeah.
all my roommates were not Americans, they're all Germans. And so there's kind of like that with the other IES kids, like I can set up times to go see them again.
Right.
But,
Mhm.
just signing that off was really difficult. I'm sure you feel the same way with your host
Yeah.
family stuff.
She walked me to it was actually the U-Bahn, not the S-Bahn station. But that was a rough walk to the U-Bahn station, but
Yeah.
we still talk.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that we can't do now that we're back in the US, but we have ways to connect still because digital stuff makes it like
Mhm.
really easy to do.
For sure.
Time zones make that a little tricky, but it's
Right.
doable.
Yeah, I mean, next week I'm actually watching a Freiburg volleyball game
Mhm.
with my roommates. We're like group watching it
Mhm.
all
That's
at the
really
same
cool.
time, and so that's really fun. Yeah, there's definitely ways to get around it, but there's an aspect of it won't be the same. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and you having Lawrence roommates, I mean,
Yeah, it was still hard to say goodbye just knowing that we weren't going to be in London together anymore, but, I was able to. I'm still friends with the people I
Right.
roomed with, and we still spend time together on campus and stuff, so it is definitely different. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then I think the next thing that I feel like chronologically happens is the reverse culture shock. And I guess there's a couple different ways to interpret what that means. So maybe, how would you describe it in your own words first?
I think it's like very similar to how people describe normal culture shock, where you have all of these expectations built up of how a place is supposed to be when you're getting ready to go there, and then you get there and it's like not like that.
Mhm.
Right.
Like there are some things that'll line up and some things that are just like absolutely not like that. And coming back from abroad is so hard because these expectations are so deeply ingrained because you've like actually been to Lawrence and the US and that's like where you grew up. But like coming back to there after having gotten used to wherever you studied abroad, it's really hard to manage those expectations because they're so much stronger than any of them that we might go
Mhm.
abroad with.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I feel like for me, it was also kind of like like I suddenly had the desire to compare everything
Yeah.
between the two.
Definitely.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like I was constantly like, oh my gosh, this was better in Germany. Like why can't it be like that here?
I
You
did
know?
that a lot too.
And so kind of like you said, managing expectations, but also like some like homesickness-esque thing, but in the reverse way, where you're just like, it's so much better there. Why can't I be there?
Mhm.
Which positives and negatives, but
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's kind of how I experienced it. There were just things that I was like, this is so stupid. Why is it like this here? You know?
Mhm.
Yeah. One of the big things I miss about London is how walkable it is and the public transportation stuff, which is very different just in the US in general, but especially in Appleton. It's like it's not as I mean, it's not a huge city, so
Right.
it just feels really different. But I think there are ways to try to kind of get that feeling even here, like I've just, if walking was something that you did a lot, study abroad, you can take walks with friends, that kind of thing here
Mhm.
too, to try to get that feeling, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And are there any examples of like reverse culture shock stuff that you guys can remember? Like the walking or something like that?
For me, it was also the walking, and then price of food is something that like
Mhm.
right away I was like, oh,
Oh, yeah.
shit,
Yeah.
this is not as affordable as it was in Berlin.
Yeah.
Especially because Berlin food was like super affordable compared to here.
Yeah.
And that was one where I was like right away, oh nope, we got to stop doing that. We're back in the US.
Yeah.
But the cultural side of it, I feel like Berlin is just so like you got your bubble, and Lawrence is like the opposite of that. Your bubble is like
Everyone.
The whole
Everyone's
campus.
in the bubble.
Hi,
Yeah.
how's it going?
Yeah.
And it's like you can't escape that unless you like hide in your room, which is like not the
Not the
healthiest
thing.
thing.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
That's not how you fix reverse culture shock.
Definitely not.
Mm-mm.
But I think like agency of just being able to like hop on a train and go somewhere.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the infrastructure and also independence and like cooking my own food, coming back
Yep.
and being on a meal plan of food that I don't like and also can't digest, and like not having that agency of doing my own meal planning and cooking was really hard. And the independence that gets like stripped away when you come back from abroad is like
Right.
frustrating. And it's
Mhm.
like being 5 and you're like, I can tie my own shoes, god damn it. Except it's like I'm in my 20s that I can cook my own food.
Yeah.
I can pick where I want to go when I want to do it.
Yeah, and like I think hopping on a loft meal plan really helped me with that on the food side of things. But there's definitely a lot of like, wow, this is so much better in Europe or wherever you studied abroad. I just say Europe because all of us went there.
Yeah.
But there's like a phase of the reverse culture shock, which for me felt like I started to realize, oh wait, there are a couple things that are a little bit better in the US. And I think that's when all of the fruits that you get from studying abroad start to like click.
Right.
Because that's when you're able to like move past the withdrawal from being abroad to an extent and like have a better understanding of like, okay, what's better, what's worse, what are the ups and downs of it, and like have a more critical evaluation of both.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point, because I think when you first get to your host country, you're going to constantly be thinking about those direct comparisons, and when you first get back, it'll be the same. But it's once you get beyond that to recognize that neither are perfect and neither experience has to be compared to one another that I feel like you can start to like accept that it was its own thing,
Mhm.
and you can take valuable lessons from what you did abroad, but it doesn't have to be the same experience for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
For me, one of the most difficult things about coming back to Lawrence was the fact that I can't go to a place on this campus and not have somebody that I know in the room with me.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like in Freiburg, I could go to a coffee shop, not know anyone, not feel like there was any expectation of engaging like in a meaningful way with those people, and not feel like not judged, but feeling kind of, just able to do my own thing without worrying about all the other people that I know that are in this room with me.
Yeah.
And I feel like at Lawrence it's really difficult without leaving campus to ever get that kind of space where you're able to just be and not the expectation of engaging in a meaningful way with people.
Right.
Which on one hand is a good thing at Lawrence. It's
Mhm.
nice that there is somebody you always know. But when you've lived in a city of, a couple million people now and you're used to not doing that, it can be very overwhelming.
It can be, definitely.
Yeah. So that was probably my biggest one that I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God.
Right. You were mentioning the food prices and stuff, and that's one thing about coming back from London that was kind of nice, is because the exchange rate for pounds to dollars is like every pound you spend, you're spending more than $1.
Mm.
So coming back was one positive with coming back from that was like, okay, I don't have to factor in the fact that I'm actually spending more than I think I am with that. So that's a plus, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And also on the food thing, I feel like the cost of like high quality food is just really high here.
It is.
Like I always used to get so many fruits and vegetables from my market that I went to, and they were so affordable. And now I'm like, I have to go get a carton of strawberries and it's like $7.
Seriously.
And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Produce was way cheaper.
Produce
London
is so
too.
cheaper. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's disappointing. Yeah.
Which, like, as a vegetarian is like, yeah.
Right.
Right.
Not in the US.
Not in the US. Yeah. And also like where you get your food. Like I always got all my produce from like a fresh produce market in the center of the city. And now just like going to Walmart, I'm just like, I have no idea where any of this came from. Like it's all packaged in plastic and there's no personal exchange going on in my experience.
Yeah.
So that was, shopping is less rewarding here. I'm not really sure what like kind of advice.
I know.
You just gotta kind of write it out.
Well, I think like the reverse culture shock and like when things start to like click about what are some things that they do better there, what are some things that we do better here, is like when you can start to think, okay, where's a middle ground and how can I like make my current setting that I'm in work for me.
Right.
And I think as somebody who got like super into activism after they got back, I think that might be part of it. Is like making my home work for me, because it wasn't when I got back. And I think that's like part of being a cultural ambassador, is like realizing what are some things we can do to like find middle ground and like work towards a better way of functioning.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
If that makes sense.
It does. And I think that transitions into like a broader idea of keeping the good from your study abroad and trying to make sure that you can still have those things in your life, which sure aren't exactly, you're not walking around London, but if you walk to class every day, then making it a priority to spend 30 minutes doing something like that will fulfill you in a similar way can be really beneficial. Like for me, since getting back, I feel like my personal time has been a lot more valuable to me, because I feel like in Europe there's generally this like expectation that after a certain time you're not expected to be working on work or homework necessarily. And so there's at a certain time that I'm just like, okay, from 9 after 9 p.m. I'm not gonna do work. I'm taking that time for me. And that's not something I would have done before studying abroad. I think I would have just been like into the American grind and been like, do it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Are there any things from study abroad that you guys have been trying to apply since coming back like that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I loved a lot about London was a lot of the curriculum was like outings and field trips and events and stuff. And so I think if you're able to, there's a lot of free stuff just there's a lot of free stuff just on campus, like concerts and that kind of thing that you can do for free as a student. I feel like participating in that stuff can be helpful to like have something to look forward to and plan on doing with friends or even by yourself, like go see the play or, something like that. Because one of the big benefits of doing that kind of thing in London was that it was a part of your tuition for it. And so taking advantage of those things, even just on campus, is good, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think, Alex?
That was another big thing for me, is like having access to like performing arts stuff,
Yeah.
because Berlin was also like really huge on that, and coming back and be able to access that here at Lawrence was helpful, I think.
Yeah. I also feel like for me, now this is different because I do have a car on campus, but for me, I've been way more willing to just decide to leave
Yes.
and do something than I was before. Probably because I think it's because of studying abroad and kind of the idea of like just being able to get up and go.
Yeah.
But like I have to remind myself, like, if I want to go to Door County this weekend, I can.
Yeah.
And I will, and kind of that like not globe trotter because it's all in Wisconsin, but like changing up your surroundings. And
Yes, definitely. Even just for like studying.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to go to the coffee shop to do this essay or something like that, instead of just forcing yourself to sit in the library for 5 hours or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's such a good point, because we do live on this like campus where that's the only thing. But when I was studying abroad, we didn't have that.
Right,
And
exactly.
so there aren't study spaces. You just make your own at random places. And yeah, I'm so much more comfortable with that as a thing to do just in general. So.
I also think, going off of what you were saying about just deciding to go to Door County or whatever, I think part of that is also feeling okay with like deciding to go do something by yourself.
Absolutely.
Which is something I think I was kind of scared of doing before study abroad for some reason, like especially on the campus where it's such a small community and you kind of do know someone wherever you are on campus. It can feel kind of nerve-wracking to maybe try to go do something alone.
Yeah, or choose to be alone.
Exactly. Like, because why would you if your friends are there or people you know are there? But it can be really nice to do something by yourself. And
Absolutely.
I think I've been trying to practice that more since I got back. Definitely. Yeah.
Also doing things on my own. Because I got very into that while I was in Berlin, is just get out there and do it on my own.
Absolutely.
And because like at that point the only person stopping me is me. And
right.
Exactly.
apply that when I get back and I'm good to go.
Yeah.
To an extent.
Absolutely. No, that is so true. Like I'm just so much more comfortable just being by myself. Which isn't necessarily like, I don't know. I mean, it's a good thing. It's also not. It's everything in like moderation, right?
Yes. Not like
just
isolating
because
yourself.
You can be alone doesn't mean you should avoid everyone at Lawrence
Right.
and not do things with them, because that's also a little problematic. Like, yeah.
There is a value to that though, because like you gotta get to know Lawrence in the U.S., but you also gotta like get to know yourself and like check in and see like
100%.
what's changed internally
Yeah.
in the last few months being abroad,
Definitely.
and what the heck's going on in there.
Mhm.
And
For
you know,
sure.
even if you didn't go abroad and come back, it's good to take some time and get to know yourself and like
Yeah.
check out what's going on in there.
I
Mhm.
have this really cool point on my list of topics which says sitting with yourself and figuring out who you are / what has changed about you post study abroad.
Mhm.
Because if you don't do that and you just try and apply yourself in the exact same way, I promise you it's not going to work out the way that you've got it imagined in your head.
Mm-mm.
Because yeah, you are a different person. You've had all of these different life experiences, and you need to give the time and space to that new person.
Yes.
Yeah. How would you recommend one actually starts that though?
I mean, it's definitely a process. It's not something you can just like sit down and do in one
You're just
sitting,
like,
because
No.
like
I figured it out 20 minutes. Like, no.
in a lot of ways for me it was like the physical unpacking of everything, because it's like there are some things that we bring with us back and then some things that we forget there. Like I forgot my Bernie Sanders mug in my host apartment, and there are a couple other things that I forgot there that weren't material things, but then I keep unpacking and was like, I think May and spring term when I finally found my magnets that don't need to be described in super intense detail that I got at a Christmas market. And you know, there's some things that were like, oh wait a minute, I did bring that with me when I came back. And I'm using material anecdotes for like internal things, but
Right.
I think that it's a long process and it's not something that can be rushed, but like taking your time and going through that at whatever pace comes naturally is important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think like during the actual study abroad experience, it feels like it goes by really fast. At least that's how I felt. Like, and it can feel kind of like a whirlwind. And so I think once you're back, maybe taking time to think about like what were some of my favorite things I got to do. I mean, this is a great way to do that, honestly, the podcast, but like just even looking back on like photos you took, that kind of thing, and actually taking time to appreciate not just what you did, but also the fact that it's a big deal, you know, that you were able to do that, especially by yourself. Like, it's a stressful thing and scary. At least for me, it was kind of scary. And so taking the time to be like, hey, good job. Like, I did that. And yeah, I think it's good to kind of pat yourself on the back, I guess.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like I feel like when you get back to Lawrence, you know, you can't you I mean you can, but I wouldn't say you should just like spend like a week thinking about everything, you know. I think you should still do the things you did before, but just don't expect it all to feel exactly the same as it was before, and give yourself grace if you know you're talking to people and you're like something's different, you know. It doesn't mean like just because something's changed doesn't mean it's less valuable anymore, and it also doesn't mean you have to do those things just because you did them before you studied abroad,
right.
You know, so give it you just went abroad and did all these new things and tried all these new things, you know. Give yourself the chance to do that again when you come back to Lawrence, you know.
Yeah
So
I also think if you did, like for the London program, if you're able to stay in touch with people that you met in your study abroad country or people you traveled with, that's a good way to feel like you're connected still to it, like whether that's like messaging or calling or whatever, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm doing Friendsgiving with some of my friends from Berlin.
Making sure you still follow those people on social media, and if they're doing something cool, slide up on their Instagram story and be like, that's so cool, how are you doing?
Right.
That's all it takes. Like, yeah, just kind of keeping those little things in touch.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
So we're gonna talk about the Lawrence Busy. And how do you how do you reacclimate yourself to that, and how do you manage your boundaries coming back from studying abroad? Who wants to kick it off?
You know, the classes here for me were a lot tougher than they were abroad, and I feel like my classes were a culture shock of their own, because my German classes, I had a new professor, I had an education class for the first time, and it was a linguistics class. So I was doing a bunch of new stuff when I was coming back as well. So that was also different. They were also quite busy compared to my other classes that I had in Berlin, and readjusting to normal academics is a culture shock of its own, especially when it's a shock of, oh wow, this is a little bit more homework than I remember. But I think it's one of those things that, like, once you reacclimate to it, it's almost like you're back at home, because it is a part of Florence. And like, when we lose something that we love, like, we also will miss like the parts of it that in the moment might seem annoying. When you come back to Lawrence, I feel like it's coming back to that super annoying thing that it used to do, because the busy is an unhealthy way to talk about it, and I could have a whole thought about the busy, but I think it's a part of the Lawrence life, because it's not just all of these classes, but it's also a bunch of awesome opportunities that we have. It's something where, like, you can soak it up while it's there, or you can just let it fly by. And
it's a decision you got to make.
It's like, how much do you want to engage with the local culture while you're abroad? It's a decision.
That's a great comparison. The Lawrence busy is the local culture abroad.
Yeah.
You can either opt to avoid it or dive head first.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with the London Center curriculum being, like, again, a lot more experience-based and, like, more class time but less homework time, less studying, specifically less, like, essay writing and stuff. And I'm an English major, so coming back, I came back to the US and summer began because I studied abroad over spring. So I had spring term in London of not having to do a lot of that, and then the whole summer of not doing any of that. And then this term coming back is my first term back at Lawrence since study abroad, and I'm taking 3 English classes. So it was like right away reading like 200-300 pages a day, writing. And like at first it was really hard. Like I was like, I don't think I remember how to read like or write anymore. But I think genuinely it just takes a little bit of time to like practice and get back into the habit of it. And I think I did, I'm sure this wouldn't be the case for everyone, but I think I did realize as I got reacclimated to the reading and writing I was doing, that I did miss that a little bit, you know, doing that kind of thing. Not necessarily the stressful parts of it, but like it did feel good to be kind of working those muscles again, I guess. So I guess trying to see the upside of that a little bit, but
yeah. No, I'm kind of in the same boat where this is my first term back at Lawrence since the end of last November. And so I'm actually having the worst like academic term of my Lawrence time so far. Surprisingly though, my academics while studying abroad are actually a little more difficult.
I remember you saying
Lawrence ones. They're just differently difficult, I guess. But I think I don't know. It's just the expectations are different, and I am a very like I don't like to ask for help as like a person, and I think I waited too long this term to ask, like, if when I was struggling with like writing and doing all this stuff, not asking for help soon enough, that yeah, I guess I just like assumed that I was gonna be able to like muscle through it, and trying to protect my peace, and keep my whole like after 9 p.m. I'm not doing the things. Well, there's a consequence to that right now, which is it's fine, but yeah. So I guess making sure that, you know, if you are overwhelmed by these things, you know, you can ask for help.
Yes.
There are, if you need academic help, there's tutors, there's accountability people at the CAS. There's plenty of people who are looking for, or who are going to help you to succeed.
Yeah.
So just don't be like me and just ask for help when you need it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
How about the social side of the Lawrence Busy, not the academic side? How do we feel about that and dealing with that?
Social was quite something.
Yeah.
A large chunk of the social is, like I was saying, like, it's the local culture. When you go abroad, you can choose to just like not engage as much with it,
Right.
or you can choose to soak it all up. But like, I think you gotta kind of like ease back into that, because like,
True.
it's not a big city. You can't go from point A to point B or go anywhere without somebody recognizing you. It's a little overwhelming at first, but I think there's a part of that like I missed while I was abroad, and it was just like a little overwhelming coming back.
Absolutely. I think one of the most overwhelming things for me was the commons.
Oh,
Because-
me too. Me too.
I was so not, like, we didn't have cafeterias where I was studying abroad, and so I was so not used to like the walking in to a room. Like, I never ate food with that many people in the space, let alone most of those people being people that I knew.
Exactly.
And so I think it can be a little that part was really overwhelming for me. And then deciding what to do, right? Like socially, like you only have so much time in the day, and like trying to like prioritize all the things I used to do and decide, do I want to keep doing all these things, you know? That was difficult because I feel like there were things that I was like, I did that before, why am I not doing it now? And that's where you have to get into the sitting with yourself and deciding, you know, is everything that was once a priority still,
right?
You know,
you know, unless you were in a beer hall of flastered Germans, you probably weren't in a dining space as loud as the commons while abroad.
But pubs,
yeah,
on soccer nights, those were loud. I feel like there's also probably an additional factor if you're a con student.
I'm sure.
Like going from not taking your lessons, like, or taking some, to doing the whole like 18 1-credit classes that the con students do. That I can't imagine what that experience is like.
Yeah.
But you can always ask to talk to somebody who has studied abroad. Like Beatrice and I work for the off-campus programs department. If you're overwhelmed, send us an email. It might be nice to just talk it through with somebody else who's made it through, right? Or get in touch with somebody that you know is also coming back studying abroad, because I promise you are not the only person who's having those problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wellness has free therapy, which is like
so great,
super awesome, and they're Lawrence people, so like they've also seen other people that have come back from abroad.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also think that, like, hopefully you'll have some friends on campus that you've missed while you're abroad, and so just like remembering that and getting excited about seeing them again is helpful, you know? Like, especially because it can be really sad to leave your study abroad country. It's like remembering that you'll get to see people you haven't in a long time is helpful, and like they'll probably be excited to hear about your experience, at least for a little. To a certain extent. They might get sick of it, but that's a good thing to kind of plan for, I think, and think about.
And you should come on my podcast.
Talk about it even more.
Talk about your study abroad time. Send me an email. We'll get it set up.
And fall term junior year is kind of like a time that a lot of people do that, and I at least had a bunch of friends that were also abroad at the same time, and were also coming back and dealing with of coming back,
right?
And having people to like experience and go through that with is helpful.
Yes.
Yeah. Rely on the people you've met and the people you know here. They will they will be happy to see you.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. Feeling bored / dread of coming back. This one's a kind of a downer, but it's Appleton, and you've probably come back from some amazing large city like Amsterdam or Berlin or Tokyo or something where there's always something to do.
Mhm.
How do you get used to sweet little quaint Appleton again?
I guess there's something to be said for a quieter environment.
Yeah.
That's so lame. But like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, at least for me, being in London, although it was like amazing and exciting and fun, it was also pretty overwhelming sometimes.
Mhm.
So like, Appleton's definitely not overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's like it can sometimes feel like a little bit of a reprieve, I think, from like a really, especially after being in a really big city.
Mhm.
You know?
I think I have a similar response because like Appleton's a lot more chill than Berlin, and like there's definitely not all of those crazy things that you experience while abroad, but at the same time, those things that we experience while abroad come with a bit of a burden because like when within the span of a week you go to everything between a concentration camp and a club, you're experiencing the
All the emotions.
most jarring, outright nauseating blender full of emotions.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And like coming back to Appleton and having something that's like a little bit more quaint and not crazy is a little bit refreshing once you realize, oh, wait a minute, this is like not as emotionally overstimulating. And I think there's like a refreshing aspect to it.
Yeah. And I think if you feel like you are bored on campus, I think then maybe you need to reach into the depths of the things to do on campus.
Yeah.
Because if you are bored, there are things like intramurals that go on every single night on campus. There are parties that are thrown. There are groups you can go to, movie nights. You could sign up for a Bjork trip, like the off-campus programs Bjork trip.
When's that happening?
Edit in a date here. Probably at the beginning, sometime in January.
Oh, that one. I went on that.
Yeah. Yes. The return trip. You should come.
Sign up for that.
Sign up for that. So I think there are plenty of things. There's almost like music things every single day, every single night here. And then if you look even off campus, then the options, I mean, keep going. So
student rush tickets at the PAC are quite nice.
Yeah. Get involved in student government. Hang out with Alex and I at General Council.
Get involved with activism if the government's not strong enough for you. Or do a little bit of both like I do.
Yeah. There's plenty of things you can find to do.
Get liberal artsy with it and go at it from every angle possible.
Yeah. Outdoor recreation club. They go to like High Cliff all the time.
Yep.
Like you can get off campus. We promise. Okay. My next point is, quote, how do I manage the everything has changed and now I have no place here? Because that's something that I felt like. And that was really overwhelming for me. And I don't know if you guys felt that way a little bit. Like, did you feel like completely out of place when you came back?
Yeah. I had a lot of my friends, a lot of my closer friends too, that had graduated in the spring before I went from abroad. So I was coming back, not having them. And like some of the friends that I did had, I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this friendship anymore. And like just like reshuffling your social life is a process of its own, but I think it's kind of one that just comes with coming back from abroad, and it doesn't have to be one, but like for some people it definitely is one.
I think for me the big thing is that my close group of friends went to study abroad for the fall of their junior years, right when I came back from studying abroad the sophomore spring.
That's difficult.
My sophomore spring. And so I had a freaking breakdown like every single day because I was like, I literally, what do I do? I'm basically starting over. That's how it felt, which you're not. I also realized that I do have quite a few other friends outside of like, I guess what I'd say was my core group that I've gotten a lot closer to since not being able to rely on that social circle. And yeah, it's difficult. But you have two options. One is to focus on how difficult it is and hide away in your room and be sad, or you can try to put yourself out there and make the best of the scenario and have it be a part of your study abroad experience.
Yeah.
It doesn't end when you get home. It's also how you apply or how you apply what you learned to challenges you're facing for the rest of your time. So,
and once again, like that feeling of loneliness or like wanting to hide away, that instinct is like, if you are feeling that, that's normal also, and there are resources like people you can talk to about that, whether that's off-campus programs or the on-campus counselors, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And there's that off-campus Bjork that is happening.
Yes, off-campus Bjork, where I'm sure we'll all talk about how sad we feel.
And ways to help.
And ways to make it better.
Yes.
Having gone on that, I can confirm we do talk about how sad we feel.
This ties back to what you guys were saying about reevaluating what's important when you get back. But if you do find yourself thinking like, this is an activity or a thing that I did before study abroad that I think I don't want to do anymore, that's fine too. Absolutely. Like I did choir all 3 years before, and when I came back from study abroad, I was like, I think this isn't what I want to devote my time to.
Yeah.
And I just decided not to, and it's made me feel a lot better. And that could also be vice versa. Like, if you've always wanted to do choir, you should do it, Yeah. But like, it's okay to let some things go also if they're not making you feel fulfilled, or like you're not getting what you think you should be out of them, I guess.
100%.
Yeah.
It's like the first week I was back from Lawrence, everyone was like, oh my God, how was Germany? Oh my God, that was so cool. And they'll listen to you for like 10 minutes and then be like, wow. And then they don't ever want to talk about it again. Like because as a study abroad student coming back, I was so excited to tell people about all the things. And sometimes I would talk probably too much about those things. And then at some point people just stopped asking. And then I feel like it can make you feel a little bit like sad, or like they don't really care about this time. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. So anyway, did you guys feel that way? Where it seemed like people didn't want to hear about your study abroad stuff?
I don't think I ran into that too much. Although I could be biased because I got asked to come on a podcast and talk about it.
Oh
but
my
gosh. I'm struggling to recall that feeling.
Yeah, that's good.
Because like a lot of my friends also went abroad.
Okay,
and
that helps.
I came back to that, and like I knew that was a thing that happens for people that go abroad and come back, where they like their friends don't want to hear about it. So I was like super self-conscious about that when I came back. So I was like kind of mindful not to talk about it too much. And like every time that I was like, okay, let me know if I'm going too far or like talking too much about it, they're like, no, keep going. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll keep going. Because like between everything, I've had a lot to talk about.
Well, I think honestly, I was so excited about my experience when I got back, and I wanted to talk to everyone about it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to apply for this job.
Yeah.
The off-campus programs position, one of the positions. And I think that has given me an outlet to like encourage people to do what I did and stuff. That's obviously not an option for everybody, but finding some kind of outlet like the podcast,
Oh my gosh.
Or
I'll listen to your study abroad stories for at least an hour.
Or like, I know they've done features in the newspaper before about people's study abroad experience, that kind of thing. If you're like, I really want to write about this, or like share some photos I took while I was there, I think there are ways to to direct that excitement, I guess. Yeah, a way I do that is like when we're tabling and I'm like, you should study abroad.
Yeah.
But I think it is like it's hard sometimes to remember this, but it's good to remember that, like, you know, people who you're talking to who didn't study abroad or haven't gotten to study abroad, it's like that might be hard to hear about because
Right.
it's like, oh, that sounds like a really cool experience that I haven't
Wish I could
had.
have done.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because people can't for various different reasons or don't want to. And so yeah, I think just like it's challenging on both ends, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess another thing to add is like, I guess you did already kind of say this, but like if you want to set up a meeting with one of us or Elizabeth, like a student
Yeah.
staff member,
Who's been in your shoes.
yes, can shoot.
That's something we can do.
Shoot one of us an email or something. We can meet up and talk.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I guess, do you guys have any other things about coming back to Lawrence after studying abroad that you think is valuable wisdom to impart on listeners?
I think like if you really enjoyed your travel experience and you know that that's something you want to do again in the future, that's just kind of a fun thing to think about and maybe start preliminary planning for, like,
Yeah.
even if it's just like putting aside $1 a week or something like that, you
Yeah.
know, like thinking of places you want to go again if you want to return to the country you studied, or like things you maybe didn't get to do while you were abroad that you'd like to do in the future. It's just kind of a fun thing to
Yeah.
think about now that you've had the experience of doing it by yourself, I guess.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. I feel like I learned so much about where I actually enjoy going and being after study abroad that whenever I plan my travels now, I'm like so much more conscious of actually picking places that I know that I think I would find more rewarding than just going to a place because it's this place,
Right.
you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, I concur with that. I think that one of the biggest crises I had when I got back from abroad is like, oh, wait a minute. That was like a really big goal that I was working towards. What am I working towards now?
Oh,
Because
that's a
like
great
I
point.
had been yearning to go abroad since I was like a wee lad about yay tall, which long time ago. And I'd been working for that for a long time, and like I had an exchange program all lined up before I got canceled by COVID, and then I finally got to go.
too!
COVID.
I was supposed to go to France in high school and it didn't
Oh,
happen.
no.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I was supposed to study for a year in Italy.
That's
in high
major.
school.
That's
yeah,
crazy.
My senior year, I was gonna live in Italy.
I was gonna go to Germany for a year before COVID.
Oh my gosh,
and that
that's
was
so
going to
fun.
be between college and high school. But
Oh, like a
Wow.
gap year
yeah,
sort of
I ended up
situation?
working and I was able to afford college, which
Nice.
that ended up working
That
out
worked
nice.
out, right?
Because I had like a lot of money saved up that I could like go travel with, and that was great. But I think not having that long-term goal that I was working towards when I got back from abroad was like really rough, and like doing some of that soul searching, and like I think that goes with the unpacking and doing like an inventory check on like what came back with you, what did you leave. And I think figuring out what your next long-term goal you want to have is, because study abroad is not a small thing.
No.
And I think having that thing that you're working towards and striving towards is important. It could be as simple as graduating, could be as simple as like having a roof over your head, like
Yeah. No, that's a really great
or maybe
point.
like you want to plan another trip or go ham with it.
Yeah. I didn't really think about that as like that way, but that's definitely something that you do have to consider, you know. We do a lot of planning to get to study abroad, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess what happens afterwards, it so far to me it sort of feels like it's like I haven't found the next thing that I'm looking forward to quite yet. So that's really good advice, and I'm going to try to apply it. So
for me, it's going to be my first apartment.
Yay!
That's
so
amazing.
fun. For me, it was really weird because I kind of had I had in my mind that I really wanted to move away from home after school, and then I went and I mean, and granted, Lawrence isn't where I'm not from Appleton, so I have moved away
Mhm.
for school, but like I thought I wanted to like leave the country. And then coming back after living in a different country for 5 months, I realized I don't want to do that. And so now lots of my plans have changed dramatically,
Yeah.
you know, because I didn't know that that's something that I didn't really want to like long term live abroad until I was gone for more than 2 months. Yeah, and be kind to yourself if your plans change, if stuff like that impacts what you think. I know a lot of people will change their majors once they come back from abroad. That's fine. Be kind to yourself. It's way better to learn those things now than do something and like regret that you know didn't figure it out when you still had the flexibility to do that.
Yeah.
So
You live, you learn.
you live, you learn.
It's true.
Yeah, exactly. And study abroad, you lived a lot, you learned a lot.
Yes.
And now you gotta figure out how do those experiences shuffle into this normal day to day that you're back to here.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it'll be different for everyone, but everyone has to go through some iteration of it, right?
Yes.
So
Honestly, just like congratulations
Yes.
for doing it, because it's really a big deal, I think, and
Yeah.
it's special.
Congratulations.
Yes.
You did it. You made it.
Yes.
You did it. You survived.
Mm-hmm.
You probably had a great time.
Yeah.
We're so excited to hear about it.
Yes.
And like make sure you keep a photo album in your phone of that, because on a weekly basis, I'm pretty much scrolling through mine right now.
Me too. Me too.
To get like a refresher of those memories, and like I don't know, there'll be random things that you experience here back at Lawrence that you'll be like, oh, remember when kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Like there's certain songs that as soon as I hear them, I feel like I'm back there. And yeah, I don't know. I was really sad when I first got back, but I feel like I've gotten to the point where I can be really grateful for the time that I spent. And I can also be really grateful for the time I have here at Lawrence.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be like mutually exclusive things.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, I think something I'm doing for myself is I've got a little project over break. I'm gonna print out a bunch of pictures and make a scrapbook.
Nice. I love scrapbooks so much.
And I've still got like some tickets from concerts or theater things, so I'm gonna put those in there too.
That's so cool.
That's a great idea.
I guess I'm not gonna have everyone shout out their own things. Instead, I'm going to shout out Bjork again for like the 8th time. Come to off-campus programs, Bjork, if you're coming back from studying abroad. Email me, get on this beautiful podcast, because I'm so excited to hear about your study abroad times.
We want to hear about it.
To talk about it. I don't know. Keep an eye out for campus cultural sort of things.
Yeah.
Follow us on Instagram. We'll have a lot of stuff that you can do if you want to be a peer advisor for your program, and have your email on our website so that people can reach out to you and ask you questions about the program you went on. Alex is a peer advisor. I'm a peer advisor.
Yeah.
All the cool kids are peer advisors.
Yeah.
Beatrice, she's the coordinator for the London Center.
Yep.
We're all get involved in study abroad once you come back.
All the cool kids are doing it.
Exactly.
Exactly.